The meeting is fine. Good evening. This is the June 10th, 2025 open public meeting of the Needham Library Board of Trustees being held via hybrid format to allow remote attendance. First, I will take a roll call to confirm that trustees, library staff, and persons anticipated to be on the agenda are present and can hear me. Erhard Grape.
Here.
Jay Fialkoff.
Here.
Michael O'Neill.
Here.
Joshua Small.
Here.
And me, Rob Pettit. And for library staff, we have Library Director Robert McLean. Here. Administrative Specialist Jenna White.
Here.
Program Specialist Gail and Dennett.
Jokingly me.
And thank you. And Recording Secretary Faith Chrisley.
Here.
This meeting is being recorded. If there is a problem that prevents the completion of this meeting, we will reconvene at 7 p.m. on July 8th, 2025. I hereby call this meeting of the Needham Board of Library Trustees to order at 7:01 p.m. For public comments, citizens are welcome to speak for up to 3 minutes each, not to exceed a total of 10 minutes. Citizens are encouraged to inform the library director in advance of their intention to speak. Those who provide advance notice will be called upon first. While the board will take public comments under advisement, there may be no opportunity for discussion or debate during the portion of the meeting. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, we've got the minutes from the May 13th meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes? And then we can then discuss.
So moved. Second.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote.
No.
We don't need to. Oh, yes. Yep. Thank you. Any discussion of the May 13th minutes?
I didn't either. Thank you. Great.
Right. If there is no discussion, then we can move to a vote. And since we are all here presently in person, we can do that by voice vote. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, the motion passes unanimously. So Rob, I'll turn it over to you for the director's report.
Thanks, Rob. I'll be quick. There's a lot on the agenda this morning, as you noted. Children's Department had a really great program in May. We had a live zoo here in this room with 86 happy kids and staff members. We had an alpaca, kangaroo, and trustees were happy in here.
Oh, yeah.
Boa constrictors. It was a great show and a lot of education as well as excitement to see these interesting animals. The last item here, this is really interesting. Caregivers and children have created their own sort of monthly hangout here called Capes and Crowns, where the children come in dressed in costumes and they hang out in the snack room and play, and people are joining them as in this time to dress up and imagine. Moving on to technology archives. Ahead of schedule, Danielle has finished migration to Windows 11 for all the PCs in the library. That's great. We also finish on time with the transition to 2FA for the Minuteman accounts. And out of the 40 Minuteman libraries, came in second for getting it done on time. It's really great. That is a big project. Every staff member, every staff account, as well as shared accounts, needed to go through this process. That security upgrade. Under reference, if you haven't seen memorial projects, there are some still upstairs. The high school reached out to us. They had done a project where students had created these art history projects to create a memorial for something that occurred in history that doesn't exist. So for the month of May, they were upstairs and Erin helped coordinate that. And it's very interesting, and we're excited to post that. Circulation, the interfiling of mysteries with the adult fiction collection has been completed. What's happening now is the shifting of the entire collection. So it's sort of been an accordion type of process of interfiling and now expanding collection back, so we don't have to use we have the space, so we don't have to use the top shelf or bottom shelf for the interfiling project. And then the new Minuteman mobile app became the one and only mobile app our patrons can use on as of June 1st. So the circulation department did a lot of one-on-one notification to our patrons about that in the month of May to make sure, and then we continue to let our patrons know through outreach efforts through email and our newsletter about that transition. So there's some improvements to the new Minuteman mobile app. If you haven't downloaded it, that is a nice improvement that Minuteman worked on for the past year. Facilities, couple items. Locks were installed on the 3rd floor bathrooms, and as I read that again today, I'm thinking I have to explain. There were always locks.
That's the obvious question,
There were
right?
always locks. These are just really, really secure locks. The building's a little bit old, and although the old locks would be locked, if one did not knock, could get walked in. So now nobody can walk in on another person. So, also, Angel, who's retiring in this month, installed some new shelving in the children's department so that the children's nonfiction graphic collection is right next to the rest of the graphic novel collection, which is really nice. Personnel, we sent out an invitation to trustees, staff members, members of the Friends Board, as well as the foundation, and some former library staff members to invite them to join us on Monday, June 23rd at 9:30 here in the community room, so we can say thank you and goodbye to Angel and Kate, who both in their own ways have been great supporters of the library for decades. So we hope you can all join us then.
I'm sorry to say I'm going to be out of town, I think, that day, and I'll really miss being here. But I'll send them a note.
Oh, and Angel's last day is I believe Friday, the 27th.
Okay.
Last month, a lot of staff attended the annual conference of the Massachusetts Library Association. We're listed here, and had a really enjoyable time. It was the first time library conference for at least 4 of our attendees. So we each got a lot out of it. I went for one day, and I think one of the highlights was hearing Andrea Joy Campbell, the Attorney General, speak about the work she's done on public libraries' behalf and joining the case against the executive order to stop the IMLS funding. And she has recently moved to Dartmouth, Massachusetts, and one of the first things she did is get a library card with her and her sons, and they are active library patrons, and so she gets us. And she, it was a great speech. She wants to help us. She wants to hear from us. So that was really exciting. Following up from that, Paula and Gaellen, this end of this month, we're going to Philadelphia for the annual conference of the American Library Association. Paula received a scholarship from the Mass Library System, and 5 people who went to Mass Library Association last month got scholarships. So that's a nice boost to the monies that we make available to staff, and a good savings for us. And then just list here things that I have done since the last meeting. Phase 1, it's been a little bit quiet just because we were going through the 20-day appeal period for town meetings. Approval of Article 29, was it? Will that forever be in my brain? So that finished at the end of last week. So tomorrow morning, we're having a kickoff meeting with Tower Construction Corporation, Hank and Ken, and the architects here to meet each other and sign and finalize the contract. So that's exciting. And we're finishing up the FAQ for staff. I hope to have that out by the end of this month to staff. That will be informed by Hank, the architects, and the general contractor. So we can get the best information to our staff to answer questions they may have.
And Rob, I was going to ask, do you have an idea when sort of that wall will go up, it'll go around the work? Is that something that we might see in August or September?
There won't be any on-site work happening until September 3rd. So it'll occur in September. I'm not sure if there'll be some initial work while there is no wall in relation to demolition. It's one of the common things we'll talk about tomorrow. Like when the what we were calling a facade, but now it's called the temporary construction wall, which I think is clearer for everybody to understand. It's a wall, it's temporary, it's for construction rather than a facade.
Is there going to be signage going up to alert the general public? Is there going to be something in place?
Yeah, starting in July, along with the FAQ, we'll be putting up signage and pictures of what is to come, but also just letting people know starting in July that this is coming after Labor Day. And just to prep them, we'll also be talking to our regulars one-on-one, just to make sure they're aware of what's happening. We're working on plans to relocate a lot of the furniture that is coming out of that space so that we will have close to the same number of tables and chairs that we do now. So it may not be ideal. It may be a little, you may see tables and chairs in places or study carrels that, oh, you didn't know that they could live there. But this is a temporary thing. And so it won't be perfect, but we want to make sure that there is seating available.
What's going to be the long-term plan with those items that aren't going to be reused in the
So there's some items now that we won't be using, relocating. So those will be disposed of. So depending on their value, they may have to go through a proper disposal, which would be offering them up to the schools or other town departments, and then offering them up to local public libraries, and then disposing of them. If it's determined that there is no real value in what we're not relocating, then it could just be disposed of, but we probably would still offer it up to others. Long term, we have to figure that out. Like once the teen room opens, like the Bosworth room is going to be the temporary teen room, so that'll be undone. That work will be undone. So you may have some furniture that is relocated after being relocated from February, and some that may be disposed of, but we haven't done that work yet. So I think this is, so it might be, I think in the past, there was a question of whether the representative from the general contractor could come to a meeting to speak to the trustees and me too. So I can talk about that with them tomorrow and see if either July or August may work out before the work starts to have someone come and
That would be great.
this. I don't know if there's a preference for August, just before it happens, it starts.
whatever's easier for them.
I feel like attendance wise, usually most of us are here over the summer. Sometimes one or two people might be gone from one meeting, but I don't think it makes a big difference between the two.
I think the only thing I can imagine is if they don't have much detail to share with us about any logistics or questions that we might ask in July and August, they would have more of that known. That would be the only thing I can imagine being a difference.
Right, they might know more in August.
Yeah.
Okay. That'd be great. And that will help us to answer questions when we talk to folks around town.
Right.
Kind of spread the word.
Yeah, because you're gonna know as they come up with plans. Hopefully you'll be in communication and that'll inform the communication strategy you're setting out to the town. But it might be helpful for us to just be closer to the time and hear the latest update in August.
Right. Even if it were September, they will have only been on site here for 5 days.
Sure.
So it's still pretty early.
I'm out of the country for the August meeting. I'm gonna have to miss that, but that doesn't, I can always catch up and watch the video if that's when it's scheduled for.
Moving on, the financial reports, the state aid expenditure report is attached and shows our expenditures for month of May. So tonight, later on in the agenda, we'll be presenting a spending plan for FY26 for library state aid. That takes into account the monies available as of June 1st, which will change a little bit as we continue to spend down some of the encumbrances for overdrive and canopy and staff training. And tonight, that's approved. Yeah, may have to reflect undone spending. Since this report is of June 1st. First fund expenditures, that report is also here. We just have credit here for Big and Taylor for defective book. So that's shows up as a positive on that report here. And we have, as we get to the list of gifts that received is listed here too. Donation fund. Statistical reports, we have the DIB staff efforts for programming and staff actions this year, as well as the chart that reflects the occurrences of DIB characteristics and what we purchased for the month of May. We also have the new and withdrawn item summary report. Our meeting for phase 1 continues, but we've done most of it. You can see here we had 147 teen fiction graphic novels withdrawn from collection in May, but we're on track to finish our work on the collection in order to move into storage by the end of August. And that storage will be here on site. And we've already received the boxes, 165 boxes that we're going to put the books in and store them here on site during that project.
May I ask you a question? The budget and expenditure report, I noticed that we overspent our expenses by 0.9%. Is that a normal thing that happens? Are we within some sort of slush?
So between the expenses, which are operating expenses like office supplies, and the materials budget, it's a bottom line budget according to the town. So we do our best guess 18 months in advance before we're actually doing this. We had some greater than anticipated expenditures for some of our office supplies, partially because during the pandemic we had a surplus, and so kind of waiting for that to balance out, and a couple of other things too. Between the two things, the town doesn't care. It's all one big bucket according to them. The reason it's split out in this report for you folks is because our materials expenditure, those 4 main categories, affect our ability to qualify for state aid. So it is important for you all to see that we are responsibly spending those items. But yes, we did go over a little bit from the original estimate for our general operating expenses.
That's helpful context, actually.
You're welcome.
So the bold-faced number of 12.3% is the one that can never be negative. And it literally can't. They would never pay a bill that would put that over negative.
And if I was to split out those four, the books, periodicals, the AV, and databases, there would occasionally in any given year be some negatives in those.
We had to move forward with a tech purchase that was significant this fiscal year that was planned for our capital improvement money for FY '26. So it's a broke, which came out of expenses. The statistical report is included here. And, a couple of interesting things to point out is that the overall fiscal year cumulative increase in downloadable books, audio and video, and magazines is what's really carrying us with that total increase in circulation. So we're seeing a lot of increase in usage and more of a flat usage in our physical collections. So it's something to note in the near future as we are determining the allocation of our resources. To
Sort of a
meet-
predictable shift. I think we would have expected over the years that it'd be a shift more towards the
Yeah, we've also put more money
digital
into
materials.
Canopy and Overdrive Advantage over this past year, and so you can see that's reflected in the numbers. The website hits are really up over last fiscal year. That's pretty exciting, and our Facebook and Instagram followers are up significantly, so we're happy about that. And just pointing out, just the program attendance for all categories of adult, teens, and children are up overall with FY '24. That's despite children's having fewer programs, they've got greater attendance. So those are some highlights there. Moving on to. So any other questions on my report? I was about to.
How's the usage for the things shaking out for the computer, I'm sorry, for the printing, color, black and white?
How are things shaking out? So,
Yeah. Is it kind of evening out or we,
yeah, so we'll more than likely be making a change come July 1st. So you may remember in the fall, we did a 3-month pilot for the public printer, the public photocopier. As the Friends paid for the paper and the toner for the photocopier. And so we did a pilot project to disentangle that from those expenses and make the photocopying free. So that was successful, and so that continues. So this winter, we started a similar pilot project for the public printers. Public printer, unlike the photocopier, offers a color alternative. So offering 25 pages free each day, whether it's color or black and white, was successful, and it's so successful we have to change it because we can't afford to pay that much free color printing. The cost is about 10 times of a black and white. So we're looking to make a change starting July 1st that
streamline that?
pulls back that free color printing, so we can.
Glad that patrons took advantage of it though and are aware of it.
It shows a real need. Right. We did look at our pricing for color black and white printing across the network, and even at what we charge beyond the 25 pages is very reasonable compared to a lot of our nearby libraries. So even if we pull that back on July 1st, we're offering a pretty good savings. That is my report.
Great. Thanks, Rob, for the report. I believe the next item under new business is a vote to accept the list of gifts. There's one gift for this month, which is an anonymous donation of $94.14 for the permanent donation fund. Prior to discussion, do we have a motion to accept that gift?
I move to accept $94.14.
Second. Discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. So we can move down to a vote and discussion on the FY 2026 Library State Aid Spending Plan. Rob, do you want to discuss that a little bit?
Yes, please. Thank you. So I might preface this by saying what I just realized earlier is we may want to postpone a vote till July, since the final spending for the FY 25 library state aid spending plan hasn't been finalized. So at the July meeting, these numbers will be solid. And it won't be much. The last new item is an increase to the emergency contingency fund for phase one. So we wouldn't be affecting anything else. We would just be changing that, lowering that number to the appropriate level to make sure things are all even.
Would it perhaps make sense then to table discussion to next month when we have the updated numbers?
Sure. I could, if there are any questions, I could answer anything now.
I think it makes sense for three of our colleagues out, rather than review all this in detail again.
Yeah,
Twice. Just right, and next one.
For Megan and Kay.
Yeah,
Especially given how many things we have.
I did appreciate the formatting on this document though, with the notes column that
Yeah.
aligns things with the proposed action plan.
That was really helpful.
I will make a motion to table discussion of this until the July trustees meeting.
Second.
Any discussion on motion to table? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, that unanimously passes, and we will take that up at the July meeting. Moving on down to one of the bigger items for this meeting, we've got discussion of the FY 2025 action plan and trustee review of goals 1, 2, 5, and 6. Jay, Megan, and I, or primarily Jay and Megan, had reviewed goals 1 and 2. Since Megan isn't here, I can provide the update on goal 2, but Jay, maybe you could start off with goal 1.
Sure. And am I right in thinking that it's not necessary for me to read every part of every entry here, but really to offer a summary? We're all looking at the document, and it'll be a public-facing document, you know, right when it's done. But you got to review several of these, and I'll certainly do my best to summarize. But I will state the goal number 1, because this is, you know, the essence of it: provide a seamless, efficient, equitable, and outstanding user experience. And it was broken down into several categories. And in all respect, we're happy to report outstanding success and efforts by the library to meet these goals. And I'll also summarize also that the way the process works is that Megan and I met with Rob and Diana, you know, early on to review these goals, and Rob and Diana and library staff really did the work to assess and evaluate and, you know, and summarize the efforts that were done. And then we had a conversation with them in which, you know, we discussed it for purposes of, you know, adding our comments. But thanks very much really to you guys for doing not only the hard work to accomplish the goals, but the hard work to summarize your accomplishments for us to review. Very much appreciated. To note some of the areas of progress, they've created a new onboarding documentation for staff. And they investigated, the library did, hiring a full-time reference outreach librarian and all such things. I think first that was one position that was not approved by the town in the recent town meeting while they were approving other larger library funds. But this, I think, leads to the understanding that the library staff this year is going to be doing a larger staffing analysis that will consider, and correct me if any of this turns out no longer to be accurate, but our understanding is the libraries, doing a larger staffing analysis that will consider the need not only for this position and other staffing issues, and we look forward, to seeing those results and helping in any way we can. But that's, I think, a smart priority. In terms of the policies, we all know as trustees that working together with the library, we've come up with a pretty good system of considering and revising the policies on a regular basis over the course of the last months, and that's a plan that we're going to continue to follow. And so, I think it's an example of really an excellent collaboration between the library and the trustees to update all the policies. And as far as work on the library website, again, the library's done great work, and my understanding is that a special shout out is owed to Danielle Tawa for her work in that area. And we understand that as a development, the town has assumed responsibility for funding Sterling's annual fee for the website upkeep, which is a logical development. In category 2, the goal of encouraging feedback and constructive criticism from library users. The library has come up with a thoughtful approach about a consistent patron feedback questionnaire. I'm not sure if that questionnaire has been completed, what the status is of that. I think that was something that you were planning to introduce as sort of this coming year. Is that accurate?
We are rolling it over to FY26 and expanding the scope. So it has changed. So it's not completed, but the short questionnaire was for children's programming and collections, but we're going to expand it beyond the children's and create one
Consistent
questionnaire for all patrons to give us their across departments.
Good. So that's, if that makes sense, that's a great development. With regard to the third category in this goal 1, ensure staff appropriately allocated throughout the organization. We're informed that the library has completed an assessment of the staff, that they've been doing cross-training, and all department heads are getting cross-trained, a process that was, when we discussed this with it, anticipated to be completed by the end of this month. And we thank very much the library and all your efforts to do cross-training for the staff. Everybody benefits. The possibility of a people counter in the children's department. And there's a plan, I guess, to purchase and install a people counter in the children's department. And happy to help that. And it's also a sign of the library's focus on getting data to inform its strategic decisions, which is, valuable, and we applaud that. So that's a summary with regard to goal 1. Goal 2, to increase visibility as a key community partner, known and valued by everyone in Needham. And just before I say any of this, I can say, from having watched what's gone on over the last year and Rob's efforts to interact with the public and go to all sorts of meetings and clubs and to introduce himself, to the people that count in the town. let alone all the other library activities that staff does. It's just obvious, to me that there's been, a tremendous efforts and success on that front. In terms of the category number one, grow the library's visibility and position as the heart of the community. I think this comes into the fact that there's going to be a larger communication, a broader outreach and communication plan that's going to be developed over the next year. That's an important priority. So that, I guess, is important and still in process. I'm not sure if there's anything to add to that, Rob, that's basically the story about that. Okay. A story walk at the Needham. I guess it's this month it's going to happen. It sounds, I want the information. It sounds like
Yeah, we'll send it
the
out.
trustees should have a field trip and go on a story walk.
Start at my house,
Is that
right nearby.
So it's one wonderful, idea, and we appreciate also the library's collaboration with other town departments, Parks and Rec, and the Rail Trail Commission. I think that's just a very positive development, and also again, we praise the excellent accomplishment about a recent arrangement with the Needham History Center and Museum as far as digitizing some archives. So, community service. Do you want to add something to that? Did I misstate that?
No, I just want to jump back to the story walk, just if I could for a second.
Please.
The collaboration with Parks and Rec is, what also came out of that is our children's department staff this summer at the pool will be holding a Splish Splash story time series.
Oh,
Okay.
So,
fantastic.
Paula will be in her bathing suit in the splash pad area with laminated picture books doing story time for the
Oh,
kids. So
that's great.
it's really exciting, and these collaborations grow and
Right.
become even more useful for us and for that.
Yes, this is all very, very positive development. There was an issue that was raised about electronic messaging, and I think that was really just something that's being considered. One of the things that was mentioned as a possibility is sometimes they have electronic signs, not necessarily right in front of the library on the lawn, but they have these signs posted around town, and maybe there are ways to take advantage of promoting library events on that. Yes, Rob, please.
And we've made use of that starting last week. So Louise in the town manager's office put up messaging promoting our summer reading program.
Oh, great.
So that'll be up for the summer at RTS signs and the PSAP sign. There's another sign in town. I don't know.
Yeah, I saw the RTS
So
marquee.
there's a limitation of 3 lines and 17 spaces per line, so we really had to edit ourselves.
You have to be concise.
repeatedly to get enough words up there that people understood what we wanted them to.
Go to library.
Yes.
And I guess that might be part of the larger communications and outreach plan too. I don't know.
Yes, yep. So I think this is a great example of like all ideas are good ideas. Like I think when this came up, I was maybe initially not like excited about it, but it's led to this.
Right. Right.
And it's led to us realizing we need to look like a holistic communication plan about like everything, so we can move forward.
And what I imagine you have a process and a schedule for your work on that plan, and when you anticipate having something.
It's a big project.
It is a
more than
big
1 year,
project.
So the action plan that you'll see for FY26 has 3 goals to come out of it before the end of FY26.
Okay, good. We'll go back to that. The library made a decision about not adding new social media platforms to what it's doing. And again, the folk, how to deal with social media is, I'm sure, something that will be considered as part of that outreach communication plan. Second category, strengthening the relationship between the town and the library. I've witnessed a close relationship between the town and the library. The library completed a new onboarding for library trustees. which we've looked at and, have great appreciation for. It's extraordinarily valuable, not only for new trustees, but, as a continuing reference for trustees going forward. And we thank very much, I'm not sure if Diana was the leading force in that or you, but, very much the work was done very valuable and useful. Become a trusted and reliable resource for information about the town. Well, the town, does a lot of things in terms of information sharing, but we've also noted that there are other sources for town information. There's the News You Needham email blast that the town sends. There's the Needham Observer, and there's a variety of things. We know from getting those news items that the library is in communication with them, because we're seeing information about library and library activities, and Gay Ellen may be in the middle of this as well. But when we get the Needham Hometown Weekly, it's a surprise almost that there's not a picture of a library event on the cover, of the paper. So we thank.
We can thank Audrey very much. I fully expect you will see something in next week's paper about the Wednesdays. Okay,
well, and there was an article in the Observer. So anyway, we thank the library for all of those efforts. They are in fact a trusted and reliable resource. So that's goals 1 and 2. Happy to talk about it, and if there's anything further. Thanks, very much to Rob, Diana, and the library staff for accomplishing so much with regard to that goal, and for helping us understand, honestly, what you have done and what still needs to be done.
And thanks, Jay, and also, while she's on here, thanks to Megan
Yeah.
for filing these responses. I don't have any changes to any of that, but I just wanted to commend the library staff on all the communication outreach over the past year. That's really been, I think, a noticeable positive shift, which is really great. We've always been getting the news out there, but I feel like we've done a really good job. And when I talk to people about things that are going on, whether it's the new app that we recently got or the construction project, a lot of people know about it. It's usually not coming as news to them, so that's always a good sign.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. I think we put it as number 2 for a reason. Our goals, that kind of, community engagement and partnership as a very high priority goal. And I think we've really come a long way with that. And so I'm excited about the foundation we've laid to build on as we move into 2026.
I think Rob has done a great job of going out in the community, because there's places I've gone and he might have been there 10 minutes before. So as a new director, it's imperative that you are seen, and then all the other things that are that have come about, the successes and the programming. It's been a good period of growth since you've been here. So doing an outstanding job.
The cadence that we've established for these goals is that, to the extent there are any substantive changes that folks recommend, we can share them at this meeting, or folks can follow up individually after, and then we vote on a revised set at the next meeting, I believe.
So Jay and I are going to work on compiling them along with a letter from you for next meeting, and so we'll probably put together some light editing, and then maybe reach out to some individual groups that worked on different sections and ask them if they wanted to elaborate. There's definitely some tone differences in the comments across the 3 collections of goals, so we'll work a little bit to keep that up.
Any further comments on questions for goals 1 and 2? Perfect. Well, again, thanks, Jay. We can move on then to goals 5 and 6. Doesn't matter. 5 or 6.
Sure, I'll be fine. So is Josh and I working with Rob and Diana in the same situation. We showed up at a meeting and they were completely prepared and gave us the rundown on where all of the objectives were at for goals 5 and 6. And our notes and comments tried to reflect the context that we were given on each of those, so that we could kind of celebrate the work and explain the work that went into each of those projects, as well as the areas that still were remaining and being moved forward to the fiscal year 2026 action plan. So under goal 5, this is about ensuring staff is well trained and fluent in analytic resources to provide the best collection of materials for the community. So the first one, evaluate and standardize collection development practices. This is kind of like a complicated a complicated project because it involves both looking at the existing subscriptions and then coming up with kind of a plan to determine, based on usage as well as not just the usage here, but also kind of availability across the Minuteman network, to then create a plan for what we're going to do. So the notes and comments here are trying to explain how we're thinking about how the library are really thinking strategically about this. That first, in order to do that analysis of what subscriptions are being used, they need to properly publicize it, right? So they want to go through a process of marketing the existing subscriptions so that we can get a baseline analysis of what the usage is like and the interest is like among the patrons. And then that'll be part of a comprehensive review of the subscriptions going forward to understand what makes sense for the library to keep purchasing. So that's where we're at and what's being passed forward into fiscal year 26 there.
Thanks for leading.
Yes, many thanks. He's going to be, he's working on that. Objective 2, reduce wait times associated with popular physical and digital materials. So this one again is the library's been working on developing a new approach to obtaining the additional copies and licenses based on local demand. And that's really another thing where we're really kind of setting our eyes on a strategy we want to move forward with, where we're rooting kind of what we're doing around collection development in terms of patron needs, but also trying to then balance that against the just kind of enormous costs that are growing with our digital collections. So this is kind of an evolving thing in terms of how this will play out, right? So they've developed a kind of protocol for this, but that protocol isn't like isn't something that we could just state as like, for this many requests, this is how many licenses we'll be purchasing. It's a little more complicated than that. And so I don't know. I think we explain it pretty well here in terms of our notes and comments. I don't know if there's an additional layer of communication work that we want to do with patrons around this, because obviously this is kind of a big concern.
Right. But communicating, you quickly get into like the weeds, and it's endless. Like no messages, we don't have enough money. So, but the money we do have, we need to use it very strategically. This is more of a concern on the digital side, on the physical side, but even on the physical side, our purchase report, we also want to take into consideration what is available at our libraries on a network before we decide to purchase something. And that is complicated in Libby because those holds lists are very large. Licenses are from 12 months to one copy, one user license, which we never lose that license, to 26 checkouts or 52 checkouts. So there are a lot of factors in price. You know, a license could be $5, a license could be $120. So it's complicated.
also complicated, I think, for the physical collection, especially with the new app, because it's a little confusing with the new app as well, which was partially on the library, like on the library website, or on the old Minuteman Library Network website before it became active on the app, where, because my family, we tend to use a lot of like physical copy holds, but the numbers don't, where you are online, don't correlate to when you're going to get the book necessarily.
Right.
And I think that's also something that needs a communication strategy behind it, or in terms of
You mean it takes longer than you expect?
so, yeah, so for example, my wife is number 1 out of 182 on a book list, but it's a book that our library, it's a new book. Our library has not gotten their copy of yet, because I asked if it's on back order or something like that. But other libraries in this system have. But even though she's number 1/182 on the list, she hasn't gotten the book yet, because the other libraries, like we do here in Edom, have reserved it for their patrons first, which is totally appropriate.
Right.
But then,
Conversely, the opposite, yeah.
right, exactly.
She
Conversely,
could be 20th on the line, but
get it immediately
get
because,
immediate,
correct.
because she could be the first of Needham patrons.
correct, exactly. So like there needs to be some sort of communication mechanism to explain that as part of this whole
Right, it
library.
can't happen through our ILS because it's not that sophisticated.
Right,
to
right, I understand.
Convey that messaging to our patrons.
Right.
Right.
We talked about this.
You know, we could,
Exactly.
in general, let people
Did you know?
Did you know
This
that?
type of-
Right, exactly.
But,
The good news is.
For popular books,
Right.
right, but the point being is like, as part of the purchase strategy, that should be communicated as part of the purchase strategy. Yes, we know these popular books are out there. Yes, we know we're purchasing them. Yes, we know there's a hold list. This is how the hold list works, kind of thing.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
So I can also tell you that for the first time ever, all of the book selectors meet tomorrow each month. We go through our orders to see where we are at on those orders.
Mhm.
If we discover that something is available in one of our other vendors, we will switch over to that vendor to get that purchase made. If it's something that we don't think is going to come in, we take it off our list. So we are constantly pruning and adding things, various locations. I will tell you that this year we've had problems with both of our major vendors when it comes to getting stock in. They are in negotiations with major publishers, and that has upset the apple cart with some things that we want to really get in order. And we do not order from Amazon enough to get those items in a timely manner. We don't have the money in Amazon to do it.
Are books made in the United States?
Yes, they are.
Oh.
It's a case of, some of the major publishers at the moment are negotiating with the vendors for stocking their items. And it's been some of the major ones, including in the science fiction field. St. Martin's is one of those, which means tour. I'm going crazy. I can't get my stuff. And we're doing our best to switch things around, and next year will be a little bit more proactive on what we can do. I know I'm shifting my focus to one of the other vendors from the major one, so we can get stuff in a timely manner. But I will tell you that we definitely go through everything, and we are up to date on what we can get.
it's good to know. And
Very proactive on it.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, I'm not like blaming anyone, it's more like so it's clearly a situational thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like outside the control of the
Yeah.
system.
So we have a number of objectives here that are kind of all overlapping in that way, which makes sense because they're all within this goal around collections. But if you look on to the second objective and then on to the third objective, you'll see that there's some overlap in this kind of collection development policy work and how this is both process work that library staff are working on around things like purchase request forms for patrons, right? Creating a more standardized process, both in terms of the form, but also then how does that form get handled that the library is going to be working on during fiscal year 2026. And then we're hoping to roll this all up into a revision of our collection development policy, which is the second action item there under objective 3, right? Where we were originally saying we wanted to promote the understanding of libraries collection development policy. which is what we were just talking about. We also really want to revise that policy and make that both clearer as well as separate out things that kind of need their own attention, like accession and deaccession of archive materials. And then based on that work, this process work that we're doing, a change in the collective development policy, then create a communication strategy around that for patrons to better understand what we're doing after those things are in place. So that's kind of all looking forward into fiscal year 26. And I think it will be helpful to think about those strategies together once those pieces are in place, because I think we're offering a bunch of really important questions here. So that's, I can go into more detail on those things, but you can also read the notes that provide the context on that. But that's goal 5.
Thanks, Gerhard. Any discussion, questions, comments on goal 5? I would just note on the electronic resources on downloadable audio and books, I've gotten a lot of questions from folks because they do get the longer wait times. And when I explain to them how much more the ebooks cost over the lifetime of a book rather than buying the physical, they're shocked. A lot of times people assume it's the opposite, that because there's no physical book, it should be cheaper. Right. But just getting that word out, like when people mention that, we can mention that we're doing these things, we're allocating more resources, but a lot of times they just don't know that it's a more expensive way of getting the materials.
I have a lot of friends when I tell them that, they're like, they don't believe it.
They're like, shouldn't it be cheaper? It should be, but
because it looks free to them, so they don't realize necessarily.
right, we can compare it to the cost of downloading a few MP3s back in the day versus paying $10 a month every month. It just gets more expensive.
Yeah.
But just explaining that sometimes helps to defuse those, as well as indicating that we're allocating more resources and budgeting up for it.
Is it more of a problem with the just the age of the system, where it doesn't, like this Minuteman system, talk to? Hopefully I'm saying it correctly. So some of the problem is that the system, it might be antiquated, and then it doesn't necessarily connect with each other.
I mean, my understanding is that they're pretty well linked. I mean, you can see all of your checkouts across both Libby and any physical collection items within your Minuteman account, and you can search across those as well. So the records are linked. I think it's just it's when you have books, audiobooks sold as a service,
Right.
where we are subscribing to that service.
Right.
And the only way to get those things is through that service.
Right.
All of a sudden that overhead adds up.
Hey, I got it.
And they have a monopoly over,
Yeah.
what they can charge us in those circumstances.
Yeah. Got it. That made sense.
So another problem, I'm sorry to delay, I think I may mention is that as we see in the numbers for this month that our patrons are using our digital collections more and more and more, if those collections are not being curated the way our physical collection is being curated, which is by our librarians, we could be in a pickle in a few years where, especially through Libby Overdrive, where we're spending most of our money to shorten the wait list, the wait time for patrons. And most of what we see on the most popular licenses on hold in Libby is not very diverse. And that's not what we do. So
What do you mean when you say not very diverse?
there's a lot of stories written by straight white people about straight white people for straight white readers.
Mm-hmm.
So that just happens to be what we see. And that if we spend a lot of our money just to shorten the wait list, we're not creating the kind of collection you see here in the physical format. So
It suggests, though, that you need to be, as part of the outreach and communication plan, you need to be reaching a more diverse audience to let them know what's available.
right, but if the license is not there that they're interested in, so you'll see with the library city expending plan that's been tabled, we have some overdrive money allocated there to address the curation of a diverse
Oh, I see.
collection.
You're saying they're not a more diverse works might not even be available.
But if they're not, if we haven't purchased them, they're not there to read. So, and it's not just diversity related to, race and sexual orientation, background. It's also nonfiction doesn't show up on the holds list. Children's and teens titles don't show up on the holds list. A few, but in the top 50, there's not a lot of nonfiction titles. So, there's money set aside if the trustees approve it, so that in FY26, our overdrive advantage curation can expand beyond spending a lot of the money on the holds list.
We talking about audiobooks? What are we talking about?
Ebooks and
Ebooks and
audiobooks.
audiobooks?
And also
Is it all
audiobooks.
like, is the top list basically like popular fiction? Like
It's like
whatever,
the
like New York Times
Times.
bestsellers, et cetera?
New York Times fiction bestseller
Yeah.
list, but also formats. You're not going to find many audiobooks in the top 50. You might find half a dozen or so, which is kind of fine by us because they're like twice as expensive as ebook licenses. But that's why you see Hoopla usage, the audiobook usage is by far the most popular on Hoopla because there's a lot available and there's no wait. Whereas there's not as much available in Libby because it's expensive.
This is an interesting question to me.
Glad you
When
clarified.
I'm in Libby, and I say, please, notify me, or put me on hold if something becomes available
You
that's
never
not
hear
currently
from-
in the Minuteman collection. Does that go to anyone at this library? Can you see that?
Where does it go to anyone?
Yes, but first it goes to the Minuteman Digital Content Working Group that does the Minuteman spending of $1 million. So we rely on them to purchase those.
Yeah.
But we do have access to that.
Okay, I was just thinking, I was just realizing, I was like, I'm doing this because I'm so used to doing that in any application, right? That I'm like, notify me when this thing becomes available.
But it's not
Right, but
part
it's-
of the hold list. The hold list is only for licenses that are owned
Right.
by us or Minuteman or other libraries in Minuteman.
But I never thought whether or not that actually is a signal that goes anywhere and is meaningful as compared to like a purchase request form, right?
It should be, it should be. a
Oh,
signal.
no, do the purchase request form.
Right, like that's what I'm
That's
realizing is
more
like the
immediate.
gap in my
That's more-
logic.
Or just send me
Can I
an
ask a
email.
technical question about what Earhart just asked me real quick? Because I don't use ebooks at all. Can you put things on hold both through the Minuteman app? I know you can put ebooks on hold. Can you also put them on hold directly through Libby?
Yes.
And that's actually,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter. I don't do it, but so I guess what Earhart, I just want to clarify what you're asking is, if you put it on hold through Libby, Minuteman does not know that.
No. This is
They do.
notifications of licenses that aren't available for borrowing or holding.
Yeah, so these are
Oh, for
things
like
that,
completely new.
these are things that there are no licenses for in
that,
that.
that you want to purchase. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
If you want to read something so unpopular, no library
Yeah,
has purchased a
Yeah.
license.
I mean, it's a
He's
good,
a professor. He has
good
access
understanding
to
of my
like,
taste.
You have all of the networks available on your device and you're searching all.
Yeah.
networks. All right. At one point, we have had people who've been on that committee that do the choosing. I don't believe we have anybody at the moment who's on that committee, but I can tell you that they are very, they work hard and they are constantly updating what they can update.
Oh, yeah, I mean, this is not
Yeah,
about anything
no,
about,
it's
I just
good.
was really realizing that I was like, wow, this is, in my mind, what I'm doing is putting in the equivalent of a purchase request form, but that's not what this is.
Yeah.
It's not as quick. Yeah, if you did ours in addition.
it would also
that-
be one of those things too, because they're prioritizing purchasing the titles that many people have put on hold.
Yeah,
Because it means that they know that they're gonna get the full usage of that license. So if you were to choose a really obscure title and you're the only person in 6 months, and they're like, we're not gonna spend $86 to make this one person happy, which is not great because we're more likely to buy the physical book, knowing that just one person might read it. But to buy the
Mhm.
license, there's also the timing. So if we buy a physical book and it sits on our shelf for 2 to 3 years, and then we read it if nobody's touched it, we still can make that decision. But if we buy a digital license, one person checks it out in the 18 or 24 months, I think it depends. Then it's just absolutely gone and it's the whole big price as opposed to the physical book, which is much cheaper.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for.
That was an interesting question.
Interest in time, shall we move on to goal number 6? Would you like to use this?
No, I can use my screen. Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's masochistic.
I still have good vision. It's getting there, but I'm getting older. All right, goal 6, allocate time and resources for future use of interior and exterior space and design. We're gonna skip number 1 because not applicable. Number 2, reorganize the children's room. So the children's room and technical services departments have now standardized the way they catalog and process everything, which is very helpful across the entire library. So thank you very much. Number 3, emphasize sustainability in the plans. As we talked about, I think last month with the electric charger, it got postponed because of grant money, but it is still on the town's radar. So that will be postponed until the next year action plan.
Well, the postponement was because the Newman School was the one. that was
Right, exactly.
prioritized.
The grant went elsewhere.
Yeah.
Yes. And it is, as we talked about, still going to be part of the lease discussions with the church. Number 4, design the teen area. I mean, honestly, this is what we've been talking about for months here. Recommended technology improvements, including additional electric outlets, ports, and security cameras. So the good news is there's going to be enough electronic access to the system, and the security cameras that are going to be purchased are then going to be able to be added to the security system to the rest of the system when it goes live. So it's going to be upgradable going forward. Staff input will drive phase 1 while ensuring a manageable construction and timeline. Obviously, the staff. The staff has done an excellent job working with the town and with Hank and the construction companies to come in at an appropriate budget, and will be starting in September, as Rob mentioned earlier today. And then working with town hall, decision makers, trustees, an affordable and convincing plan to move forward with construction of phase 1 will be presented at annual town meeting in spring of 2025. That has been done, we have passed, and they're signing documents tomorrow. So congratulations to all. We look forward to working with the town and the library to help in any way we can moving forward.
Thank you, Josh.
That was, I mean,
That's
it helped that there was a.
that's a nice note to end on.
I know, seriously.
Yeah.
For our goal review. Any discussion, thoughts, questions on goal number 6? All right, well, in that case, I think we've gone through all of our goals, so congratulations, everybody. Nice to have that review completed, and then we spoke earlier about next steps for finalizing this for approval at the July meeting.
We'll follow up.
Yeah. I think I'll probably just use the same template we used last year for the report, so should be pretty straightforward to put together.
Great, thank you to Earhart and Jay for that. And then kind of keeping that circle of life going on the next item, we've got the FY26 action item list. So the next item for discussion.
Yes.
I do want to ask Rob, make sure you send Jay and I that Word
Yes,
document.
I wrote that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. So last month, this draft was presented, and the second draft tonight represents the feedback that we received. The biggest feedback was to make sure we rolled over everything into this document that we said we were rolling over from FY25. So
Mhm.
all of that is reflected here. I don't know if you want me to go through each action item for 26, what measurement of success related to those.
What, were there any other substantive changes other than the rolling over? I guess you had to define a measurement of success for each of those rolled over items.
Right, and most of them rolled over into something that was there but had not been called out. So we have consistent wording at the end of each priority action item paragraph that talks about work being expanded and completed. So that's the indication where the rollovers happened. There was no new addition related to that.
That's helpful. You can easily see which items are rollovers. It's helpful just for us to keep track of that.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to follow how we easily identify which of the rollovers.
Like on goal 1,
Yeah,
number objective 2.
yeah,
So the second sentence, this work, which began in FY25 as part of the action item.
got it.
goal 1
You
and 2,
identify it
will
there.
be expanded and completed, and then the following action item has the same
Got it.
sentence. So we use that out to indicate the rollovers that are mentioned that needed to be added.
I see. Thank you. Yep.
I did notice that I think there's only one of those that is not within the objective that it was originally under. And so I appreciate like the effort to make sure that we can cross-reference each of these, but it does add a lot of words for all of the ones that aren't the one that came from a different objective. Right, because I think it's just the goal 5, objective 1, second action item that came from goal 5, objective 3 instead of objective 1. All the other ones are in their original goal and objective. So
Yeah, but the problem is if there is one that's different, then you have to clarify all the other
well, I
ones.
understand like the rationale to
Yeah.
do that. It's just it's a lot of.
Don't want me to undo it?
I'm fine with like
No.
with over specification on this,
Feels a little funky, huh?
but it feels fun.
It's clunky, but I don't think there's any way to get around it because if they were all from the same previous one, then you could leave it, but that one isn't, and then therefore you then have to clarify that all the other ones are from the same previous one.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, as long as, really, the key thing for us to know is not so much which goal it's coming from the prior year, but just the fact that it is rolling over from the prior year, in my mind at least.
Yeah, I agree. Like I appreciate knowing that, like, because you're right that in that particular case, it's not just a rollover, it's a change, right? Like you're actually kind of seeing these things as combined,
Right.
As opposed to being part of a separate objective. So there is some value in identifying that change.
I mean, personally, I'm fine either way. It's, as long as we know which items are rollovers.
We could delete just the just stating the goal and the objective from the former action plan and just say this is from the FY 2025 action
Plan.
plan.
Yeah,
And then in those cases, which will be expanding completed in FY 2026.
I think that's sufficient because I agree. The point is like
I like having the back data so it's easily searchable, but that's fine. I could be outvoted.
I mean, it's worth, if if it is important for us to see that trend and how those things are connected over time, like if we were to do some sort of, and I don't actually know how this works in terms of our bylaws. We might have to come up with a new approach. Like when we evaluate the overall strategic plan
Mhm.
at the end of 2027.
Yep.
Will it be important for us to be able to draw that line? Because I don't even know what that means for us to evaluate that. Like looking back over that whole plan and what that'll entail as compared to these year by year action plans. Because I don't think it makes much difference in terms of our evaluation of the year's action plan, but it may make a difference in terms of evaluating the overall strategic plan after 5 years.
So maybe we just keep it to be on the safe side.
Now we have those threads to go backwards.
That way, future Earhart doesn't have to.
Yeah,
Because it is help, right?
yeah.
And
Come
it
out
makes
of the
it-
future
and
Earhart.
it helps like for you, because like you have the institutional knowledge. But for
Yeah.
example, for me, where I was here previously to understand how this was done before, Rob, for example, wasn't here to understand how it was done before. This is cleaner institute, like it's a way of getting the institutional knowledge onto a page as opposed to in someone's head.
So that being said, if we assume for a moment that we just keep those references as they are there any comments, questions on the substance of the action plan?
I think it's very clean and allows for very distinct, like there's obvious goals and obvious objectives as opposed to more nebulous things. Like, I like that it's very clean. Like,
The measurement of success is really helpful.
Yeah.
Oh, Rob.
Sorry to interrupt, but there was one of our comments was on goal 6, objective 4, to move the last measurement of success, which related to teen programming, into the goal and objective that was about serving teen patrons. And so that was also done.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you.
Sorry, that was a substantive.
It was,
that I
yeah.
I know that, there's a busy year ahead with all the construction. That certainly dictated the action plan, but I didn't have any substantive comments on it. Rob, were you thinking we put this up for a vote at the July meeting?
That's what that's what you're comfortable with.
That works cleanly with closing out the last plan. And
Yeah, that's how we had designed it, was to do that both in July, so.
Yeah, I think that would be nice. One question that is interesting is if, as we finish FY27, do we make sure we do not have rollovers into FY28, which would be a new strategic plan.
Well, I mean, there could be. As Rob will probably articulate in his cover letter, the amount of work that got done this year, despite not having, an assistant director in place, is really impressive. And I know we're also trying to scope this action plan based on the fact that a lot of our attention needs to be on the renovation work. So I don't know that we need to have a strict requirement that they all be completed and no rollovers happen, but I'm hopeful that we'll be in a better position to get close to that.
Can I ask a question? Just with regard to a couple of items that were discussed, for the last plan. A staffing analysis was indicated as a priority. Do I miss it? Is that here in the action plan? I thought that was intended to be, maybe I'm missing it as I skim through it now.
Page 1, goal 1.
It's right at the
Objective 3.
beginning? Where is it?
Goal 1, number 3.
Very good, okay. And the same question again, just to make sure I'm not missing it, the idea of an outreach and communications plan, my impression now is that that's really more now of a long-term plan.
The community outreach plan is at the top of page 2, and that's, should be completed in FY '26. It's the communications plan, which
Got it.
may go beyond FY '26, but we do have deliverables that we want to achieve in FY '26 as part of the communications plan.
Great, okay, thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, Rob, for revising this and recirculating it, and also just getting it in front of us for 2 meetings before we vote, which really helped to kind of own the process. And we can bring that to a vote next month.
And that was all the staff.
Thank you to the staff. So moving on to the next item under new business, we've got discussion and vote on the select board goals for FY '26 and FY '27. That document was circulated along with the trustee packet. As it pertains to the library, there is an initiative, trying to find which page it's on, but there is reference to the phased library renovations. And it's in italics, which indicates that it's something that's currently being executed. So just thought I would point that out. Rob, did you have any other thoughts about how this pertains to the library? Anything that we should be, any feedback we should be giving?
I think the letter the trustees sent last year, I think it was maybe early fall.
No, I'm looking at it right now. We approved a letter on June 11th, 2024, responding to the select board goals for fiscal year 25 and 26, where we tried to align our strategic plan efforts with what we saw in those select board goals, with a strong emphasis on, like supporting the phased renovation, and also emphasizing some of the other things that we thought the library benefited from, like some of the HR policy changes that had been put in place or that were being put in place. So that's what we did last year. And I think I had worked on a draft for that June meeting for us to kind of come in and discuss so that we could, if we could put together a formal response.
Goal number 3 is livable, and I think we are right there in making Needham livable. But I think there is really a housing point to this goal. But the last goal that supports and enhances neighborhood livability and accessibility for all members of the community.
It's really goal 1 too.
Yeah, like we do that in spades, our daily work, and even if the letter was just to raise that up, to show that we support these select board goals. If these goals continue for 26, 27, Katie's cover letter said that in the process of reviewing, updating goals for 26 and 27. This is the current goal document that we're sending out for feedback. But I assume most of these goals, since they have initiatives that are short and long term, will probably stay in place. We just have maybe different action items.
So I think, we had a great letter last year. We don't obviously have a letter for review and approval at this meeting. When it was circulated by Katie, I think the request was that, board and committee members can send back feedback. If you're comfortable with it, I would be happy to draft a letter and send it to them prior to the end of the month, which was the cutoff. Generally consistent with last year's letter, but perhaps with some updates on what we're currently working on, discussing the staffing study, which is probably something on the horizon that may not have been last year, but just kind of getting that out there. Even if it's not something that needs to be added per se to their goals.
One specific thing that the trustees may want to consider in the letter is, since the town manager for capital improvement items for FY 27, 28, 29, 30 decided not to make recommendations, that the letter may want to suggest that whether it's goal 1 or another goal, that supporting money for the design of phase 2 is really, really important.
And that's
That will be submitted this fall as a FY 27 capital improvement project.
Yeah, we mentioned it in under goal 1, healthy and socially thriving, in the letter last year. We wrote, we request your support in advancing the capital request for construction of phase 1 and designing construction of phase 2 over the coming years. This will enable us to unlock opportunities for renovations that serve our aging residents well. So we could reiterate that point.
Hey, Earhart, do you have the Word copy? of that document?
Yes, I'm sure I do.
I'd be happy to update, or if anybody else wants to update it, that's fine too, but it can come from individuals. It doesn't need to come from us collectively as a board, because if it were, we'd have to approve it today.
Yeah, I mean, this could
We can't just approve you revising the letter to send it out.
I would like to. I don't think we can without a clear idea of what's in it. I can certainly say that, this letter follows up on a discussion that we had in our June 10th meeting, and kind of reference that and say that, I'm sending this as a follow-up to the library board's discussions.
I would be okay with that if others are comfortable and think that that's appropriate.
I'm happy to circulate it too. We just can't, for open meeting laws, we can't substantively edit, discuss it outside of the meeting, so.
I mean, we could probably vote on endorsing a letter that makes a particular statement, right? Knowing that, whatever you write will kind of only make that statement.
That would be fine. I think if we're able to get into the granularity that we need to, obviously we discussed, getting in the request for funding for phase 2. Kind of reiterating some of the points that we had in last year's letter. Anything else specifically that we wanted to call out in this one that we did not? The staffing study as well.
It's hard to talk about without having last year's letter in front of me. I'm guessing much of it will continue to be relevant.
I just want to, under responsibly govern for current initiatives. The select board does have library renovations, phased renovations listed as currently operationalized. The plural on that is promising because phase 2 would be the second. But maybe putting a highlighting that phase 2 is now on deck and needs support for design money. And thanks, May.
Can I actually make a request? Is there a possibility of getting like a actual document that has the phases on it? Like, I don't know that that's anywhere public. Or if it is, but
We had the plan.
It's in the, it's in the plan.
which
I'll
plan?
send it to you.
Is it,
the
it must-
framework?
it might be prior to my
I'll send you.
membership.
Might be.
It's on our,
The util.
yeah, it's on our website. I'll send.
Some of the FAQs for
It is on
town
the
meeting
website.
had it.
And it's on the
That's still
website.
available.
It's on the website. Okay, that's fine.
That's the space study.
It's the space study, but is that the 4 phases?
Yeah, that breaks down the 4 phases.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll-
With diagrams.
I will find it.
for the letter, anything else we would like to bring to the select board's attention, emphasize, anything we'd like to connect specifically to those goals that they've identified?
Only that it seems to me that, that the library is central to goal number one.
Yes. Make a note of that.
I just sent all the trustees the Word doc version of the letter from last year.
Thank you. Would all of you feel comfortable taking a vote to basically delegate authorship of the letter, which I can say I'm sending on behalf of the board? I'm not going to list names at the bottom because we're not all signing off on it, but just to delegate that.
I'm comfortable with that.
In that case, all you need is a motion and a second.
Can we carefully craft that motion?
Feel free.
No, just a request.
I'm looking at the letter from last year for a
Yeah.
second. It's helpful as a reference. Well, I'm comfortable making a motion based on this conversation to designate Rob to draft a letter to the select board modeled on the form of letter that was used last year, with additional references specifically to the priorities we've identified today, including most notably the need for support of development of phase 2 of the construction plan. I don't know what else, Gerhard, you might want to add to that.
I'll add to the motion by saying it should say that the Needham Free Public Library trustees have discussed the select board goals, but that this letter comes from the chair, Rob Pettit, as opposed to from the whole board of trustees, since we were not able to vote on. So I would say that's how I would open it. I would open.
Yeah, that seems like an appropriate way to
We
explain,
discussed it and then it's,
explain what this reflects.
yeah, and say it comes and then it's from the chair.
I think that works for their purposes too, because they're not requiring letters or feedback from each body.
Yep.
All
right.
So the motion on the table.
Yes.
Can you read the whole motion?
We've moved it.
Oh,
Can I read the whole motion? I was not typing it verbatim.
and I don't know if I could
No.
remember it verbatim.
And that's Faith.
Faith, what do you got?
Designate Rob Pettit to write a letter to, modeled on the letter from last year, June 2024, identifying the goals that were discussed today, especially the development of the phase 2 design work. And then Earhart mentioned we should put first the Needham Free Public Library trustees discuss the select board goals, and the letter comes from the chair, Rob Pettit. So the first sentence goes first and then the other two go second. I was going to listen to the recording again to order it when I put it in the minutes.
Well, I think I got how he constructs the actual letter. And I think it's most important just to say that the framing of this is that we discuss this, not that we are stating this.
Right, because we're not signing our names at the bottom. This
Yeah.
is something we've discussed. And based on that discussion, I am now writing this letter.
Yeah, so it's not a statement from the board of trustees.
Right.
It's a record that we've discussed these things and that the chair is wanting to report to the select board that these things are important.
Exactly.
Rob would say yes.
Any
Yes.
seconds?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Apologies, we couldn't have a letter for this meeting. It channeled about a week ago. We got the email from Shaking, so just didn't have time to put that together to include it in the packet here. We are moving on to old business. The first is to discuss the draft of the onboarding document. Now, I know that Megan and Kay had some feedback to the document. Rob, you know, did Megan's edits make it into the version that was sent out?
No, we haven't received this yet.
Okay.
So other minor edits have been made to what I shared based on comments from last Trustees meeting, but Megan's working on a section called responsibilities here to sort of parse that out to required versus recommended. Kate talked about also delineating the powers, so that work is to come.
Motion to table discussion of this. until We receive that information from Kay and Megan.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And I believe, Rob, we can skip over the photography policy. It's not coming back to
That
haunt
was
us.
a brain fart, sorry.
It seems like it should be every
Pass
meeting.
that on.
It should be a monthly item.
Yeah, stunned
Just-
that.
Didn't
it
that
could
one
be
get a
done.
check mark already?
Yeah.
It seems too good to be true.
So sorry about that.
Oh, wait, No, we got a quorum. Yeah, 4 out of 7.
So it's fine.
The quorum is a simple majority.
That's what.
Okay, fine. Moving on.
I guess we can, might as well go ahead, just in the interest of time, with the Library Art and Exhibits Committee report. Since Kay is not here, Rob, any updates on that?
So there's no vote tonight on current exhibitors that were happened at the last meeting. Last week, a new installation went up of paintings as well as crocheted art items, which are outside the door to the local history room. If you'd like to see that, it'll be up until July 15th, when we then put up a new installation until the end of August, and then we will stop when construction occurs and then pick it up again in March with more art installations.
I haven't seen the current one, but I want to make a comment about that last exhibit that had the student submissions, some of which were really impressive. And that one large piece that was in the center of the exhibit, I thought was just fantastic.
You should have seen the rest of his stuff up at the high school. Oh my God.
Just
He had other big pieces like that too.
really really
Very
just
talented gentleman.
very impressive. What do you remember the name, Gail?
What, I can't remember the name, I've got it somewhere.
Just, striking.
Oh, I think so. I
Like-
can tell you that the two that were
Right.
up front, facing the front door, that was part of, I think, 4 she had on exhibit. I believe she's going to be the scholarship winner this year for the New Art Association.
Not to take anything away from all the other fine pieces, but I was really struck by that
I will
work.
tell you that this year was probably the best that they have seen. I will also tell you that they had more art than they've ever given me. I had enough to fill the wall, which is not normal,
That's great.
and a lot of award winners. We also have Wayne First, who is doing a pottery exhibit also up in the big display case and the smaller display case facing the front door. That just got installed.
Well, thank you, Rob and Galen, for that update on the Art and Exhibits Committee. Nothing to vote on there tonight. Moving on to the MacIver series, Michael.
Oh, yes. What's really good is that we have all 3 of my people are in, they have designated days. Alyssa Kazin will be here on October 26th. Then authors Paul and Peter Reynolds will be here on November 9th. And then the last person, Jimmy Myers, will be that following Sunday, on November 16th. So thankfully, I have Gay Ellen on my side. I just have to get the people are just putting in their paperwork for all the kinds of things that need to go that are necessary. I have to work on the press release. So that's the next step. So we're way ahead, which is a good thing. And I look forward to just kind of coming up with an idea of a theme for that. So that's part of, if there is a delay, we're actually months ahead. So it's a good place to be in, but that's basically it. And
Can I ask you to just make sure that whatever, the invites or information about it, make sure that the trustees get all that, so that we can know to put it on our calendars and
Oh, yeah.
attend if we're available.
yes, definitely.
I can tell you that we are fully booked for the fall. There is a program or a book sale every single Sunday from September 21st through the end of November.
It's amazing.
That's awesome.
That's, and that's fantastic progress on McIver. Thank you, Michael.
Yo, yeah, I've just, I've been in that seat of hearing how difficult it is. So I talked to Gay. I said, okay, I'll get on it right away. So for me, it was just making sure that I could think of the people that would bring something interesting to the town and our patrons, but also, have them available. And the rentals I've known for over 20 years. Alyssa, I've known for about like 5, and Jimmy, I've known for about 30. So I just reached in my little, say, you guys got to come and do this. And everybody was, when I told them what I was doing, they were all on board. So that's good.
That's awesome.
It is.
Sounds like we've got a solid programming year coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Very solid.
Don't even sneeze.
I've got very little open space in all this fall.
Thank you. Thank you for the update. Thank you, Galen, for getting all of that programming lined up schedule-wise. Jay, I heard that there's an exciting update from the Friends about the program that happens.
Well, there was a program this past Sunday, Warren Zanes. I know Faith was there and Michael was there. I think, got very positive feedback. Warren's quite an interesting and charming guy, and really a great songwriter and artist, and really a wonderful writer. I recommend his books. Most recent one about the making of Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska, that's going to be turned into a feature film. I think it's going to be released in October. So I think that was a successful event. The Friends had a successful book sale last weekend. Made more than $8,000. I can't remember the exact number. And if you ever look behind the scenes, you'd be amazed at the hard work and effort that goes on to prepare for and to staff those book sales, including physical labor by some people in terms of shelving and vending and doing all this sort of stuff. And so anyway, that was big success. And I bought a couple of books I have no room for. I don't know, Rob, is there anything specific to report about requests to the Friends for funding that over the last month? I'm not sure that there is.
No new requests.
Okay.
If I could, I just wanted to note that Lynn McClellan has stepped down from being co-chair of the book sales.
Lynn,
No.
Keith did.
Lynn,
Keith
no,
did, or
Keith-
Lynn did?
Lynn,
So who's gonna be, man, this was her swan sale?
I think, she said Rick
Rick.
Fleck and
Okay,
Jennifer
well, she's,
are taking over as the co-chair. but
Okay.
it might not
well,
be
she's been
that.
doing it for quite some time and very impressively, and, is owed a great deal of thanks, as are all the Friends for the work they do on.
And
On those
then
sales.
Keith is still gonna be on site for treasury on the day
and
of.
making the signs.
Yeah, making signs, do support. But he's not gonna take that active.
But
role.
she's I think she made a note that she's leaving with Angel. You know, he's been such a great help over the years for the
Okay.
friends and the book
Uh-huh.
sales, and so she's stepping away as he does.
It
Good.
was, yes, it was Rick Black and Jennifer Quinn, are
Okay.
assuming the chair of the book sales.
Great. And I guess I'll just move to the Library Foundation because I'm the liaison for that as well. I believe that there's a meeting scheduled for next week when I'm away, but I do know that to report that I know the library has submitted a request for funding for a number of children's programs, and that's been shared with the program committee of the foundation, who I'm on it, and like all the others said, this looks great. And
Okay.
you know, if I was a betting man, I'll bet that the Library Foundation approves the plan, approves the request. But that's, you know, the other few on the committee are passing it along to the whole board for consideration. But it was unanimously supported by the three of us who are passing along that request. And thank you for the you know, clear and thoughtful description of the various children's programs that you're looking to fund. But I can't speak for the foundation other than to say, if I were you, I would be hopeful that your request will be supported.
I want to say thank you for them approving last month all my adult programs.
I had a question about the foundation, because I was looking at our bylaws, and we are synced in terms of appointing a designee to the Library Foundation according to the Library Foundation's annual elections. Does that exist? Do we know when those annual elections are? It says that they're supposed to be in
It should be
June.
this month.
Yeah, it
I
says
don't
that
know what's happening.
they're supposed to be in June according to our bylaws. I was curious, because we're meant to, I think, actually vote on a designee each year as to who that's supposed to be. But it's the way it's written. It says, you know, the board's designee on the Library Foundation Board of Directors from the next foundation annual elections until the following foundation annual elections. That's the term of the designee from our board to them.
So I can't, I don't have any specific memory of
Okay.
a vote by the foundation. What I know is that I was the liaison last year, and then you were tentatively scheduled to become the liaison as the former chair.
Right.
But you felt you were preoccupied with other library
Right, and I
matters.
just rotated off the PVC, right? And so I was trying to figure out, okay, when would I, if I could assume this position that you were willing, you know. if you-
I don't want to intrude. You asked me to step in, and I offered.
Yeah,
I offered to continue to do so.
and so I was just searching for this today. And so I was wondering even when, if we don't even know the election calendar, how do we align this vote with?
This is for the foundation to elect.
Their own.
For us to elect
We have to
our
elect
liaison.
our liaison to their board, but it has to line up whenever they're
But it's
elected.
according to their annual election calendar.
So I don't know that, but I also don't know if what you're suggesting now is you'd like to become the
Well, I'm willing,
liaison to the
I'm willing
foundation.
to serve in that role, if that's something that makes sense.
If that's something that you're open to doing, I'm open to letting you assume that position.
Okay.
And that kind of keeps our rotation going.
Yeah,
I was just doing you a favor when you asked me to step in, because
Absolutely.
at the time you were focusing on the building stuff.
yeah.
So I guess we could.
They
vote
have
on
a,
it
they
at
have,
the July meeting if we wanted to, or we could vote on it this meeting contingent on and effective upon.
but I'll also
the
mention,
elections.
but the foundation, I think, has a meeting scheduled for next week when I'm out of town and I can't make it. I'm not sure if you want to.
Are they having elections next week?
I don't know that I've seen an agenda.
So
The other question I would have for you, Jay, is, are you a voting member of the foundation?
Actually, they treat you like a voting member.
And does that have to go through the clerk's
Town.
office?
I don't
it's
know what
not a
that
town
means.
organization, so.
Yeah, it doesn't function that way,
I don't think
the way
so.
that the PVC does?
It's an independent nonprofit that supports us.
right? It's not an elected town body event, or even appointed for that matter.
Right.
So what if we had a motion to appoint you officially as our liaison contingent upon acceptance of the Library Foundation? And
They
then,
have to-
I'm willing to bet
I
on
don't
that
think they have to-
also.
Like, they have to have a.
As far as bets
I don't
go.
think they can-
I suppose we could,
They can
not,
reject our.
not knowing
Representative.
whether there is a meeting this month, and given that the bylaws reference June specifically,
They do
we could just, this is the closest way to adhere to the bylaws to appoint you.
I mean, this would be the actual moment in the bylaws
Yeah.
when we would be changing over would be in June or June, July.
Oh,
In
okay.
terms of who is our designee to the foundation.
Well, I'm forwarding you the email that just has the information that there's an annual meeting on June 18th, and so maybe if they call it their annual meeting, that
Maybe there would be some
is
voting.
likely to be a meeting with some elections like this,
Okay.
and so
Does he have a
I'll send along my
contact person?
regards and mention that,
Well, I mean, according to the bylaws, you would attend this one.
well, but I can't be there.
You could be there. That's funny.
Send his
I can ask
understood.
Kathy.
Yeah.
And they do not meet in July or August.
They don't?
So definitely this meeting.
All right, forward that to me.
I did,
All right, great.
and I'll send a note to Kathy informing her.
Well, we still have to actually formally nominate.
Right. Yeah, that's our.
If anybody wishes to make a motion.
I will hereby move to nominate Earhart as our liaison to the Library Foundation.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Earhart.
Yeah.
Just freed up Tuesday
Thank
evening.
Jay too.
And thank you, Jay. Yes, thank
Yes,
you, Jay,
that's
for
right.
all the reports and updates.
That's right. We wouldn't get to this point without you, Jay.
And that leads us to trustee comments.
I'll just say this, after being at the Friends with Warren Zane, it was quite the, how can I say it, spirited storyteller, colorful language, and just very genuine. It was a good experience. And I think there was a lot of people really just sitting there. You know, June 8th was my birthday, so I came on my birthday that day. And I just wanted to support, as the vice chair, support the Friends and just expand our relationships. But I had a really good time and everybody there. Jay, thank you for bringing such a important person in terms of like historical, musical, and just his whole journey and the people that this man has embraced. It was quite a history lesson. So it was a good time, very good time.
Thank you, Michael. One thing that's sort of worth mentioning is as part of Warren's story, he talked about, you know, his formative years and how his mother provided them with what he called cultural capital. That is, him and his brother grew up listening to their records and reading their books. And Warren spoke of spending time at the library and how all of that was formative for him, you know, and it's you know, it's worth mentioning that these issues of cultural capital are under attack these days with you know, the political system putting at risk investments in museums and libraries and public media. And I thought, you know, Warren's presence was an example of not only the value of cultural capital as it impacted Warren growing up, but you know, it's a wonderful thing that we have a library that can offer these opportunities for engagement. And it seems sometimes that this is something that we're going to have to fight for to protect. So it's the good fight that we contribute to as part of our work here for the library. So, just that.
Thank you. Any further trustee comments? In that case, we have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you, everybody.